everyone, and welcome to a new video. It's been a while since I've been in a sit-down video, so I will see if I survive. But we are going to talk about the books I read in October, and if you read the title for this video, I ended up on 54 books. Hopefully that is correct, because usually when I go through them, I usually find like one I missed writing up. The other months before that, I was on 39 and 34, so I was like, okay, I calm down now, but October, apparently not anymore. But it's much more calm in November, just so you're aware. I'm gonna somehow go through all of these books, and I hope you hold on. So let's get started. I'm just very happy the fact that a lot of these are in series together, so then I can talk about them together and it goes faster, because the first book I read for the month was An Echo of Things to Come. I think I had about like the last of our buddy read from like September for the first day in October, so I finished this on like the 1st of October, which was fine obviously, but I didn't read like all of this in that month, but obviously it came on the October wrap up. And I also read The Light of Olaf Halls, both obviously by James Islington, and I read them with my friend Johanna, and we had read like An Echo of Things to Come, not An Echo of Things to Come, The Shadow of War was lost like earlier in September, and it was honestly such a ride. I still can't really describe the books, but it follows these different characters that at first go to kind of this magic school, and if you don't pass these tests you get thrown out of there. Like then they do some stuff with your magic, and then our main character in the first book kind of leaves this magic school before this tests, and usually they hunt you down when you do that, but then other things happen, and then other magics are found, and there is like a lot of like time stuff. We travel in time, as well as like an old war where certain characters are reborn again. A lot of people have compared it to Wheel of Time, and I can definitely like see why. And I think that the story was absolutely amazing. Like there were so many elements to it that was so cool, and plot twists that kept twisting, especially the end and how it all came together. I'm getting goosebumps thinking about it. It was so incredible. It was such a good time. However, I do think that some parts of the story was a bit confusing to me. Like there was parts where I was like, I don't actually understand who you are. I've forgotten. There was a lot of characters, and I don't understand like all the elements to like the reborn stuff and stuff. Not the reborn stuff, but like the time stuff, I mean. And it was a bit confusing, and I still don't have a complete overview even after 3 books. So it might be my own fault obviously, but I do consider rereading at a point. I just not now, probably not next year either, but like maybe within the next 5 years I might feel like a reread, because I did have a marvelous time. I given them all 4, none of them reached 5, but maybe upon reread they will. But it was still like incredible. Not as much love for these as Will of the Many, but we will see how the Will of the Many develops when we eventually get a sequel. But still like super solid fantasy that I had a blast with. I obviously forgot to say in my intro, I did do Bookopoly for most of the month, and my picks and reads, I feel like some of them are very random, but it was to fit them in my roles, in my October TBR, and in my like vlogs. You can see all the roles I did. I don't remember every role for every book here right now. Some don't have any roles either, I just had to read them, so check those out if you're interested. But it was a grand time. Next, I read Mars Comes In Like a Lion Volume 2 by Chico Umino, which follows the shogi player. And I watched that anime years ago, and it's really fun to now read the manga. There's something up with this production though, because like this never came, and then it finally did. Now the 3rd volume was supposed to come in November, now it says like February. I'm very confused of what is actually going on, and then my like pre-order was cancelled, so I had to order it somewhere else. I'm very confused, but hopefully it will come in. But it's really like cozy, feel good, and sad, but still enjoyable. My next read after that was Hevnen er søt, or like Revenge is Sweet by Roald Dahl. This was like a short story collection with like 13 stories by Roald Dahl that was like scary, that I had borrowed at the library. Managed to squeeze it into a roll because like my loan was expiring like the next day, and I didn't really like this. I guess it was probably well written, but I like didn't care for a single thing or like a single story, and I just like don't know why I read it honestly. But I was recommended by a colleague, so that was a bit rude, but it was not a story for me, or a book for me at all. I think I gave it like a 2. Next, I read Robinson Crusoe, or Crusoe, I don't know, I keep calling it Cruise, and I know it's not that, by Daniel Defoe, which I read for school, but I did manage to get it in a role as well, and I absolutely did not like it at all. It follows the dude, obviously, that's lost on this island, and he's there for like 28 years. I find it interesting to see like the history and what this Robinson Crusoe Crusoe did to the book market at the time was interesting, and like the history around it, and I guess reading a classic, but the story itself was blah, and the writing was blah, and I did not have a good time, and that's what I got to say. Then I read Klara and the Sun by Kazuo Ishiguro. This was a leftover on my audio from the month before that I didn't get finished, and it was so good. Oh my god, I am really happy because the first Kazuo I read was really, really good, and I did not enjoy the next one at all, and I was a bit scared, but this was so good. This one is like an AI futuristic thing where people can buy AI friends, a bit like that one Black Mirror episode with Miley Cyrus. And our main character is an AI, and then she's bought by this girl, and they become friends, and then it's like all the dynamics in her family and like what she's doing for that family as her AI best friend in a way. And it goes in directions where you think it's gonna go, and then it doesn't in a way. And it was so good. I almost cried it down. It was very sad, but kind of beautiful. It's still sad and a lot about humanity and stuff like that. And it was just very good, and I would definitely reread it. And it was just really good. I feel like I gave it a 4, but it could be maybe like 4.5 because honestly I just like it more after reading it. Then I read New Moon by Stephanie Meyer, which is for my thesis. So I reread Twilight the month before, and now I reread New Moon, and it was such a time. Obviously, as the years has passed, I've seen the movies more times than I read the books, but I have read the books a couple of times too, but it is a long while ago. It was wild to read this now. I had a good time, but I'm just like, consider how much happens and how little happens in a book in one go. It's actually incredible. But Twilight, no other words needs to be spoken about this book, honestly. Like, can anything else compare? Nothing. Then I read Banana Fish Volume 5 and Volume 6, which is great because then I can put them together, even though I didn't read them after one another. So Banana Fish is this mafia thing set in New York, and they are being hunted or being imprisoned, and there is like mafia stuff happening, and there's this like drug on the market that they don't know what to do with. Very gay as well, honestly. And then we are just vibing in the 80s in New York. I found it fine. Like, it's not my favorite, but it's not terrible either. Like, I am entertained, I am into the story, I want to know how it's all gonna play out. I also need to watch anime. I watched like the 3 first episodes, and yeah, I have soon bought all of them as well because it's like my main buying right now. So then I might actually finish it. It won't be this year, but next year. That would be cool. Then I listened to Mickey 7 by Edward Ashton. I listened to this together with Erica because we want to read it because the movie is coming in January with Robert Pattinson. When we realized also that movie is called Mickey 17 because they have been killing him a few more times. But it follows this like spare person that signed up to be the spare on the ship that does like all like these dangerous jobs. And if he dies, they just make a new version of him. And what happens is that they make a new version of him before he's actually dead. So now there's 2 people of him, and that's not allowed. So now he's like trying to hide that there's 2 of him, and things happen after that. They're on this planet. They're trying to make, I guess, a colony in a way, and then things escalate. The way Robert Pattinson speaks in the trailer, the way it's set up, it seems hilarious and fun, and also, you know, the director. Very excited, very excited. The book was entertaining. It was like fun. I don't think it was like, oh my god, mind-blowing, but it's definitely like had like a certain rhythm to the story and the way it was told that made it an entertaining one. And I think I gave it like a 3, perhaps rounded it up to 4. Like, it was an entertaining, okay time. Then I read Possibilities by Dial Goldstein Love. This was a bit weird, and we are this mother that lost her child, or like her child is missing, but then it's like parallel universes in a way, and I'm looking for her child, and it's really weird, and I didn't really get it, but so I'm not sure if I like loved it a lot, but I read this and a couple of others here for like another sit-down video I want to do, so I will be a bit short and I'm like try to see if I can film that soon. So I gave this a 3. Then I listened to A Certain Hunger by Chelsea G. Summers. This one was for this book club I'm in, and it was so good. Like, I can't stop thinking about this. This is about a woman who's writing about her life. She used to be a food critic, and then she started to kill her lovers and eat them, and then she just like goes back to like how she came about to do this, and it's just so fascinating to read about. It is just obviously terrible, but like the way she tells the story is like a delicious meal, which is kind of nasty since she eats people to describe it like that. But it's just the language just so lush and wonderful and beautiful, and the story was like, how is this gonna end up? Even though you know where it's gonna end up, you're just so into the story. And my character is terrible in a way, but you also not necessarily cheer for her, but the way she's so into herself and like totally like in her own world. This is why I did, and I think it's justified. We don't agree with her, but we can definitely see why she thinks that, and I think that is very fascinating writing and story. And I really loved how it was written. Especially, it's like not often I love sentences, but this one really got me, and I really enjoyed it. I give it a very strong 4. Would I run it up to 5 now? I'm unsure, but or did I give it a 5? I honestly don't know, I don't know anymore. It's been a while, you know. But a very solid read for me. Then I read Starling House by Alex E. Harrow. This girl that keeps dreaming about this house that is in her street, and she has this kind of magical connection to it. She needs to go in there. Things happen in the house. Don't know what more to say than that, but there's this dude there that's handsome. And I liked it fine. I didn't really find it that gripping or like rememberable, like, oh my god, best story ever. It was just totally okay. But the cover is beautiful and the edition I have is beautiful, and the writing was good, but it's just leaving me with like, it didn't really give me that much that I'm left with now, if you get what I mean. Then you can see that I tried to at least theme myself a bit after, not a lot, but a bit after the month we were in, because I don't usually read as much scary horror. Like, I do here and there, but like not as often, I feel like, as I did in this month. The next one, Graveyard Shift by Amelie Rio. And I love If We Were Villains, so I really want to love this one. It's just about like this one night where they have this shift in the graveyard, and then we follow different characters. I feel like there was a lot of characters considering how short the book was, and then it very abruptly ended. Like, I was really getting into it, and then it was over, and that like really drive me out of everywhere. I enjoyed how it was written, and I started to get attached to some characters, but honestly it was too short for me to say more. I was like literally turning the page, and it was just over, and I was like, what, nothing happened. And then it annoyed me. Like, it could easily have been a full novel if you like expanded more on it, and we were already attached. So yeah, I was like, is it coming a sequel? I don't know. So for me that didn't work, and I gave it like a 3, I think. Then we have Killing Stalking Volume 5, which follows a stalker and serial killer that basically are in love. But are they in love? I wouldn't actually say call it love, but yeah, they have started murdering people. They're going on a holiday. This one, it is a wild time. I enjoy the series because I really want to see how it goes. It is absolutely disturbed, but I will keep reading it. So here we are. I don't even know what to rate it, honestly. Like, I'm like, do I like it? I don't know. Will I keep reading? Yes. Then I finished New Spring, which was the Wheel of Time book for, I guess it was August or September, and then the live show was in October, but I just read it in October. We had the live show already, but try to remember to leave the link down below. This is a prequel to the whole series, following Moraine, and I thought Lan was more in it, but he is there, but this is how they meet, but I thought he was more there, honestly. But kind of disappointed that Lan was not there. The first time I read this, I rated it 5, I rated it 4 now. I think it is good, but I just didn't fall in love as much as the first time I read it, which was a bit sad, honestly. But we still read it. Then we had a manga night, which is also, this is one of the reasons I read so many things this month, or last month, I guess, because I decided to binge the whole series. And usually when we do manga night, I read like one anonymous manga, which takes me a while, but this time I binged the whole series for the manga night. It was very fun. Man, I have binge series before for other read-alongs by myself, but they're usually like maybe 8 volumes, etc, etc. Well, I had one, I'm looking over to my shelf, that was 11 or 12 volumes, I'm not sure. But the one I binged this time was Yakuza Lover, because Yakuza Lover is finished, and it is 12 volumes, and it was such a good time. And this is a girl, a young student, I fell in love with mafia boss, basically, and then a lot of like mafia, like, you know, the typical like mafia drama happens. She gets kidnapped, there's mafia drama, there is a rivalry, there's someone else who wants it, like so many typical things, but they just wanna be together, and it's really sweet, very smutty for manga, at least in the beginning. It gets less smutty as we go on. A lot of drama, over dramatic stuff. I loved it. I really cheer for them, and I really like, honestly, saw how much they loved each other and really, really cheered for them as a couple. There was weird stuff happening in the end that I feel like weren't tied up properly. I'm very confused of the last volume and what happened there. I wish we had gotten more of like what was going on in the end. Can someone tell me? Because I honestly don't know. So I wish we had gotten more there. And like the ending didn't ruin the like super enjoyable ride I had, but it did affect my enjoyment overall, because like I had such a good time throughout the whole series, but then the ending left me with what, like, I read all of this for what exactly? I don't know. But obviously this count as like 12 books out of the, I don't know how many I said anymore, 54 or something. So that is one of the reasons there's so many on the list. But I love that for me, and you should love that for me too, honestly. Next read was also a manga, which was Love is War, Volume 5, which was these two, like, vice president and the president of the student council, who are in love with each other, but they don't want to admit it first. And then they are really silly, and it's really, really fun. So fun, good time, and I am just enjoying it a lot, so I'm excited to continue. I then read Where Sleeping Girls Lie by Farida Abike Imene. This one was also my better read in my Patreon Discord, as well as obviously a role. And this one is following this girl that goes to this boarding school, and then murder starts happening. Gross things is going on there. There's trigger warnings for sexual assault and murder and different other themes in the story. I really enjoyed it. I think the writing was really good. I think the characters were compelling. I think the story was compelling. I want to know what was going on. And I already knew I was gonna like it, but it was no surprise. I loved Ace of Spades. Like, it's a 5-star high tier read for me. And this one gets a 4, but still super enjoyable. I would very much recommend if you feel like it. And I was unsure if it was gay, because like the other books by the author are gay, but it was definitely gay. So I'm very happy with the gayness. Then I listened to The Dagger and the Flame by Catherine Doyle. This one follows these two organizations, that one of them are thieves, the like cloaks, and then the daggers are the assassins, or is the other way around? I don't know. But this girl joins like the coke people after her family is killed, and then, or her mother is killed at least, and then she meets this dude that is tasked to kill her, but he doesn't kill her because he's horny on her, obviously. And then they like uncover other plots together. I thought it was a fine YA fantasy. Like, it wasn't terrible, but it wasn't like, oh my god, I'm missing quaking in my bones. It was totally fine. Interesting enough, Freddie Carter reads the audiobook for the dude point of view, so then you know that. And I thought that was interesting. It was okay. This is for the Fairy Love Log that like the next one I'm starting, so that will come eventually. Then I read Utregning av romfang book 4 and book 5, which I needed to read because they were expiring at the library, and I managed to get in, I think, both in rolls, which was impressive. This follows this woman that is stuck in the same day over and over and over again, and this goes on for years and years and years. This is originally in Danish. I read it in Norwegian, and I enjoyed, I think, book 5 a lot. I think 2 and 5 are my favorites. 4 was a bit like whatever. There's so many things you can do with this concept, and the author is really expanding on it, and it's really cool to read. But now I'm feeling like, how is this all going to come together? There's only 2 books left. There's going to be 7 books. But I do think it's a fascinating story to follow, and I am curious to see the end. But it's very up and down, because some parts I think is very philosophical and a bit boring, but then other parts are like super good. I'm like, oh my god, I need to buy this series. So I can't decide how I was gonna end up until I read the whole series, and then I would decide maybe I should buy it then. I also read And I Will Be Leder, or One Day We Will Laugh About It by Thomas Kosko. This is like another Danish series that follows this dude that is gay and closeted, I would say, because of his abusive family and his poor family. And then we just follow him growing up in the first one, and then in the second one he is like more like teen young adult, and he's going out in the world and like trying to figure stuff out. I think they are fine. It's very like, I think, a typical Nordic book in the way it's told and presented. I don't think it's like the most incredible ever that a lot of people made it out to be, but it is fascinating. I actually have the 3rd book here in my room now that I also borrowed at the library, which I need to read soon because there's a long wait list. So you will hear my following thoughts in my next wrap up, I assume. Or maybe actually my December wrap-up, I'm totally lying. Then another book I had at the library was The Silverblood Promise by James Logan. This seemed like a cool high fantasy that I would enjoy, but I ended up really like not enjoying it. There is this dude that his father's killed. He needs to go out to find his father's killers, and it just didn't give anything. It looks really cool and like something that I fancy I would enjoy, but it ended up not just being it for me. I was just sitting there like, it's not giving me anything. I don't care about the characters, I don't care about the world. I was very disappointed. I think I gave it a weak 3, but maybe it's more like a 2. I don't know. Then I was picked out in my community shelf, How to Sell Haunted House by Grady Hendrix, and I was like, no, I don't actually want to read this now, because I had so many other things I needed to read, and I was super stressed, and I didn't want another book that was like not one of those books on my TBR. I listened to the audiobook in this, and this follows this woman whose parents die, and then she is gonna go and sell a house, and then her brother is like very resistant to this. They have a very turbulent relationship, and then maybe the house is murdered that they are gonna sell. And there's a lot of like underlying trauma in their family that they haven't talked about for years and years and years. So they need to figure that out as well, and like their relationships, and yeah, a lot of things they went through basically. I think it was good. Like, I was very invested in the story, the writing, the characters are very strong. I just think it was a bit long. Like, in the end, it kept going and going and going, and I'm just like, can we just wrap this up now? Like, I get it. I get it at this point. I feel like it could have been like 100 pages shorter, and I would have enjoyed it more. Like, it's almost 400 pages. If it was like 300 pages, if you cut out like some of the like long stretch out scenes, I think I would enjoy it more. Also, I was playing as a movie in my head, so definitely would watch a adaptation. Then I finally, and I'm saying finally, read A Dance of Giants. I feel like this was picked out in my Tumbling Pandas TBR in August, and I still haven't read it until now. Or was it September? I feel like it was honestly August. And I used so long reading this in a month. Like, I just read all the things that like kept distracting me, because it was just so long and it just never ended. I obviously love this world. I love these characters, but there was a lot of point of views here for like minor characters that was just there for like one chapter and disappeared, and I was like, what? And obviously a lot of the point of views are like stopped here, because like in the last book we focused on King's Landing, and this is the North and with Daenerys. So like, for example, Jaime and stuff, there's no development in those point of view in this one, and then we just never get Winds of Winter, so we will never know. But I enjoyed it a lot. I didn't give it a 5, surprisingly. I give it a 4, because I just felt it was really long and a lot of things didn't happen. But obviously still enjoyable. I can't believe I used that long on it though. Like, I can't believe it, but I can't believe it. Then I read My Androgynous Boyfriend Volume 4, which basically just follows this cute couple and their story together, and I think it's very sweet. I think the last volume is coming now in December, so then I will finish it. Oh my god. Then I, right after that, read A Night of the Seven Kingdoms by George R. R. Martin as well, because I wanted to like complete everything within like the universe. This year was picked out in my like randomized series to finish this year. This follows this hedge knight with one of the Targaryens going around, and I have also read Fire and Blood now, which I will talk about in my next wrap up. But I thought it was a fun, good time. The first story especially was really good, and the others I didn't care about as much, but it was still like a good and solid time, and I am now very excited for the TV show that will come about following this. So yeah, it was a good time. I don't regret reading it, and I could reread again. Not that again as in like I reread it now, but I could reread it. That was what I was trying to say. Then I read The Reformatory by Tanan Rive. I can't say like the Tanan and then the Rive after, like my tongue keeps twisting. This one is a like horror kind of story. We have these two black siblings that lives in turbulent times where, well, racism lives stronger than now, and it's like historical, but I can't remember the year in my head right now. And then her brother gets like sent to this boarding school, but it's really like a prison, and she's trying to find a way to free him out of there, and it's kind of like haunted there as well, so he's dealing with seeing ghosts and stuff. And I really like the relationship. I like how much they loved each other and trusted in each other. The atmosphere of the story, the writing was very, very good. I ended up overall enjoying the story a lot. It was sad though, and obviously like hard-hitting because of the themes surrounding the story, but I think it was really well done, and I feel like I give it a 4. Then I read The Kingdom of Copper by S.A. Chakraborty, which I think I picked out for my Gum Machine in September, but now I finally read it. Yay! And this one is a sequel to City of, is it Brass? Maybe. I didn't love that as much the first time I read it, and then I reread it and enjoyed it much more. And now I read the sequel, which was so good. Oh my god, the elements coming together here was so good. I don't know even how to describe the plot, but in the first one we have one of our main characters who finds out she has like these healing powers, so she needs to go to the city of Bard, which is like a magical city where there's a lot of like turbulent relationship between the different people there. And then we follow the prince, and I'm one of like, is he a djinn? Yes, he's a djinn. Sorry, I was struggling. There's a lot of like politicalness and like people hating each other in the city. I enjoyed it. The ending. The ending was so good. I was like quaking in my pants. It became really, really cool. So I really enjoyed it. And I'm very excited and scared for the third and final book. But yeah, I didn't think that I would end up liking it so much, especially after not liking the first one initially. Then I read Totally Bound Hanako-kun, Volume 8. By the hero, which fit perfectly for a role, while simultaneously was the next one I needed to read on my manga. Follows this haunted school basically. This girl is with Hanako-kun, who's connected to this toilet, who is a ghost, and they go out on these adventures in this school. Kind of sad, but fun and chaotic as well. Then I read Looking Glass Sound by Cortonia Ward, which followed these friends when they are kids, and then these certain events happens, and then we follow them again when he's in school, and he writes about these events happening to him in a way, and that someone else is writing about it as well, and then it all gets like mixed up and we don't know who is writing what. It is done in a bit confusing way. Even though I found it interesting, it was still confusing, and I did like it, but like since it became so chaotic and kind of dreamy in the end, I ended up not liking it as much. I found the beginning the most interesting for me, and I think I gave it a 3. I then read The Pale Dreamer by Samantha Shannon and The Bone Season by Samantha Shannon. I got sent these copies from the Tanner Collective for About to Read, where we're about to reading the whole series, so you should check that out on Instagram if you are interested. Also reading them with Mads Christie and Roe, which is a good time. And obviously this is the rewritten editions. I read them all that are out in like the old versions, but I haven't obviously read the rewritten ones, so it's fun to discover the stories again. I do think that this was much stronger as I can remember and the first one, because the first time I read it I didn't enjoy it as much apparently, because I gave it like a 2 stars. I had a much more better time with this time around. Like I was very engaged in the story, very invested in what was going to happen. I liked the relationship dynamics much more between the old characters, so I ended up very much enjoying it, and I gave it I think a 3. But I feel like maybe like 3.5 could have been better, because I feel like I have more positive feelings towards it sitting afterwards. But I guess it's still, when I think about it more now, I feel like some slight frustrations that I felt the first time I read it, but still I feel like it was more enjoyable like the OG one and the emotions I had back then when I read it. And read Attack on Titan No Regrets. We have Volume 1 and Volume 2 of the series. These fit perfectly for 2 roles, so I ended up reading both. And obviously Levi is my favorite character ever. I watched that anime a couple of times, which is obviously, that is a time, but reading the manga was also super good, and I just love him so much. I love this world. Can I say I love the world? It's kind of terrible, but it was a really good time. These are not even mine, but I need to get myself my own copies. I borrowed them from my friend who had them, and I needed them ASAP to complete my prompts. I also read Last Leave the Room by Caitlin Starling. This was on audio, learn to complete our prompt. I don't know if I ended up loving this as much, but we have the scientist that is like, is researching into something, and in her basement there's a weird door, and out of that door comes a copy of herself, and we don't really know what this copy wants and what she is and all that. And then the story like develops from there, and it was very fascinating at first, but then I got very confused, and I'm still a bit confused, and I don't know if we're supposed to still be confused, but it still had a fascinating writing and build up to like the story. It's a perfect actually drawing, but it didn't seem as creepy in the actual book, and I do think it was like interesting to read it, and you were curious of what was gonna happen. But then I was just like, what is actually happening? Because I don't know. I still don't. But at least I read it. And then I'm sitting here like, what? Does anyone know what actually happened? Then I read Dørene lukkes, or The Doors Are Closing, by Maren Skole. This was a, not an audio, but a library book as well. Had a lot of them in this, actually, so you should be proud of me. This one was a book about checking, and I thought it was more like you were checking up on people, because it seemed like she was very interesting in her love life. But it was actually more her checking, because she has OCD and she's checking things over and over. Like if she took off the oven, she should take a picture of this over and over so she can look at them afterwards to see it if she actually did it. And that is usually not even enough. And she checks things over and over and over, and is very stressed and depressed and has a lot of anxiety and depression out of this, and is feeling alone, and she feels like she can't be loved. And she had a different relationship that doesn't really go that well. And again, she feels like she can't be loved, etc. It is sad. It was actually very depressing. It looks really like cute and funny, but it's trying to be a bit funny, but overall all the themes in the story was like super serious and depressing, and it was written very well, and I think that the story was done well, and it brings up important mental health things. But I was not prepared. And I was reading it and I'm like, oh my god, this book is so sad. But I ended up liking, sounds really weird at a book like this, but it was a good book and I gave it a 4, I think. I was just very surprised of how emotional I was getting and attached and all that. But yeah, it scarred my heart. That's what I got to say. Then I also reread The Serpent and the Wings of Night, which I read earlier this year, so I'm like, why am I rereading it? This is also for my thesis, so I kind of had to read it again. I still don't get it, even after reading it twice. I don't get it. I don't get why these people like each other. I don't get it at all. But it basically follows this girl that was raised by the Vampire King, basically, and she's gonna enter this tournament thing to kill lots of other vampires to get the wish that basically her father wants, and she thinks she wants as well. She meets this hot dude in there and then things developed. And I think it is like, it was a vampire story. It was fine, but the way, like, I don't get why they like each other, the way it builds up, it doesn't feel exciting or anything. And I'm just sitting left here with what it feels like nothing, honestly. I give it like a 3, like, I had fine scenes, some of them, but mostly I'm like, I don't know. And I read Skjul by Hanako-kun, which is another library book. This is a teen book that follows this young, normal girl that just wants to have sex, basically. It's all about wanting to have sex and being slut-shamed and porn and behavior against young women and what you should or should not do, communication problems, like so many different elements of the story. And about what teens grow through, basically. And I think it was done very well. I think it carried these heavy-handed themes well. And I think it's just, teens should just be allowed to be horny and have feelings, I guess. And I think it explored this well. So I ended up liking it. And I would recommend it to teens, even though I feel like if their parents were there, they would be like, what? But I feel like it's important to read because it teaches you so much about limits. And I think it was done well. And I also personally like, I mean, I knew these things, but I know a lot of people don't. And I feel like I personally, it's always nice with a fresher. It's always nice to see like a clarity sometimes. And I feel like this did it in a well way. So yeah, it was a good time is maybe the wrong word, but it was an interesting time. Then we got Here One Moment by Leanne Moriarty, which was a book I was sent to by the Tandem Collective again, and we had a buddy read. That is obviously now over, but it still was a good time. This one is my first Leanne Moriarty book, but I always want to read one, and this ended up now being my first one. We have our main character, you could say, that goes on this plane, and then everyone in the plane, she predicts their death. And then we are like just sitting here questioning, is it real? Like, did she actually predict their deaths, or did she just bullshit, basically? And we go deep into her life and back in time to see how she ended up on our plane and did that this one day. In the beginning, we are very much focused on like interested in like the people who were on the plane and what happening to them. But after a while, I personally got more invested into our main character and like what happened to her life, and it was kind of heartbreaking, honestly, and I was very invested in her. But overall, the message of the story is very much like, you never know how long you're gonna live. do the choices and the best choices for you now. Don't wait, blah blah blah, life is beautiful, go and live, yay. So that is kind of what we left up with, and I feel like it was a bit too on the nose for me, and I get the message, obviously, we agree and all that, but I just felt like it was very like on that, so it made me feel like, ew, life. But I still think it was done well, and it made a compelling story. It doesn't go exactly like the direction you think. It's a bit long, you know. So it changed directory, I think, a bit, but I think it does it in a well way where it feels natural. Then I read The Vampire by John Polidori. Yes, Polidori, which is like a super short vampire short story that was written in the 1800s before Dracula, and it's like the first vampire modern story, blah blah blah. And they also have Bayon's version in it, and I'm reading again this for my thesis. It was fine. The first time I read it a billion years ago, I purely gave it 5 stars. That was a bit much Sandra, but I didn't give it 5 stars now. I think I didn't really rate it, honestly. Maybe a 3. And then my last read was One Season, but since I read Pale Dreamer, I took it together with that. So my second to last read of the month was actually Yukinai by Julia Quinn. This was my Gum Machine pick. Maybe this was for August. Yes. And then Kingdom of Copper was up for September. What was for October then? I think I ended up reading it now this month. Yes, in November. Sorry, I needed to think. But this is the first Bridgerton book. I audiobooked this as well. Audiobooked a lot, apparently. And I didn't love it. I didn't hate it either. But I watched the show many times. I love it. But the book was fine. It had some of the banter. I love to see more context around the characters and getting to know them more in depth. Obviously they changed a lot, but I don't mind that. Still enjoyed it overall, but I felt like it went much faster in this than the show. In a way, I felt more sparks in the show than in this, because I feel like Duke in here was just very horny. I didn't really feel like he loved Daphne as much for her personality in a way, maybe, but it was still fine. It wasn't mind-blowing romance, but it was a fine and entertaining enough romance, if you know what I mean. And now I realize I have the whole series because I have, the Lucas stats, and I might just read them here and there, and so I eventually read them. I never planned to read them, but since I bought a Lucas set, I feel like I have to read my TBR. And that was the 54 books for the month. I feel like we did fine on the time, maybe. I read a lot of library books. I'm proud of myself in that regard. You should see me soon in a new video. Thank you so much for watching. Leave a rose emoji down below if you enjoyed this. And you should see me soon. Goodbye.